Welcome to the Theodore Roosevelt Center here on the campus of Dickinson State University. We're so excited you're here. I'm Clay Jenkinson. I'm the host and moderator of our events. Oh. Thanks. As my mother would say, give it time. We're so glad you're here. All the events tomorrow will be here until the evening when we will be back over in May Hall and Stickney Auditorium for this spectacular recreation of sport circa 1905. You're going to love this. Women's basketball game. It just feels like it's in super slow motion, but it's really, really interesting to see the evolution of basketball from the time of Theodore Roosevelt until now. So we're eager to get started tonight. I want to do just two things before I invite the president of the university to come up. First, Mary Massett, would you just come forward? With the retirement of our dear, 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 dear friend Sharon Kilzer, we've had this scramble because Sharon keeps in her head thousands of things that none of us know enough to enumerate. And Mary Massett stepped in and has really taken up the slack for all the extraordinary details that make this thing work. Mary, we so appreciate you. Sharon Kilzer, the great and powerful, has redirected her life in an astonishing and beautiful way, is moving down to the borderlands on the boundary between Texas and Mexico and serving those people in need there. It's one of the most extraordinary revelations I've ever seen, and we're going to miss you so much, but we know that this is going to be a great, great new chapter in your life, and you're going to make even more of a difference there than you have here. So thank you, Sharon Kilzer. We love you. And now, the president of Dickinson State University, Stephen Easton.
Oh, it's so good to see you here. It really, in so many ways. I'm also an alum of Dickinson State University, and I am myself a confessed and proud Ted head. I've, like many of us from southwestern North Dakota, I have been interested in Theodore Roosevelt for a long, long time, and spent about 14 years of these symposia saying, I've got to go next year, but was so busy in life it didn't happen. And then I got here in this other realm, and then COVID hit, and then we had two straight online-only versions. By the way, to our friends who are seeing us online, we're very excited that you're with us in that form too. But it's great to have you back here in Dickinson. It's a really remarkable place for those of us that are from this area. It's a remarkable place that we live. I'm going to tell you a little quick story about a trip I took yesterday. My friend and former boss, Dr. Richard Skay. Dick, could you stand up and say hi to everybody? So I talked Dick into coming to the seminar last year, to the symposium last year, and then of course it went online only, and he was able to talk the airline into some partial refund, and he came this year, and I said, your plane's getting in when? And he said 5 o'clock, and I said, I think if we get lucky, we'll have just enough time to drive out to the Elkhorn Ranch site. I did a quick calculation in my head, and we did have just enough time. Just about at dusk, we got to the parking lot. Then there's a little bit, 3/8 to a half a mile walk, and when we got to the end of the walk, we got to the Elkhorn Ranch site, and our new friend Joe was there. Joe, can you stand up? We had never met Joe before, and Joe's out and he's camping somewhere near there, and we got to talking to Joe. And as my wife says, Steve, it takes you too long to get to the point. There is a point at the end of this story. Joe's working on a big Theodore Roosevelt project of his own. It's a really exciting project. I'll let you talk to Joe about it over the next 2 days because it's not my story to tell. It's really exciting. Find Joe sometime and talk to him. But he said, and we were sort of getting to know each other. And he basically said, did you say you were with Dickinson State? I said, yes. And she said, there's this thing, the Theodore Roosevelt Center there. And I'm on the website all the time. I am reading the documents, the digital documents all the time on his, who instantly loved me because I had a connection to work that I don't personally do, but I'm very proud of. The Theodore Roosevelt Symposium is a project of the Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University. The Theodore Roosevelt Center, I just want to, before we get on with the program, just want to pause, and we should all note what an incredible thing it is, the Theodore Roosevelt Center. They took on, a decade and a half or so ago, this amazing project that was unheard of an attempt to, Johnson Chair Jeff Wells told me the right words to use, to reunify and annotate, digitally annotate the documents of Theodore Roosevelt to make them available to the world. And people are out there using it. Those of you online or those of you here that aren't aware of this resource, tonight, go home, Google search Theodore Roosevelt Center, and you will find our site, and you can do research about Roosevelt, and you will very quickly get amazing documents back. That audacious project, let's try to make the documents of an analog president, a pre-digital president, available to the world. That idea is the Theodore Roosevelt Center's idea. There are people out there who have taken that idea now and are talking about doing it for other presidents. Stanford University is talking about doing it for Herbert Hoover, for example, to the tune of, I saw an estimate once, I think it was $48 million that they're going to, that they think they're going to spend. When something becomes part of our life, it becomes ordinary. That should never become ordinary. Any of you have any connection, and all of you do because you're here, to the Theodore Roosevelt Center, you should be proud of that. That is an amazing thing that the Theodore Roosevelt Center is doing, and it's just very cool. And now that we've noted it, we can move on to our program. I just want to have a quick reminder at the end of our program today, we're going to have some book signing here, and then you're all invited to come down to the Heritage Foundation. Down the hill, we'll have a little march so that everybody can find it. It's about a 1-block walk downhill for a reception this evening. We hope all of you will join us. But to those of you who actually do the work of the Theodore Roosevelt Center, I'm proud of you. We're all proud of you. It's an amazing thing that you do. I'm going to turn it back to Clay.
I've been at this now for 20 years, until now always with Sharon, and we've had several presidents at this institution, and none of them has been as extraordinarily excited about Theodore Roosevelt as Stephen Easton. We wander into the Badlands together. Now you're taking your innocent guests out there on your own. This is really thrilling, and so we so appreciate your leadership and what you've been able to bring to this project. So $48 million for Herbert Hoover. You know, so if you have 37.5 million, we'll take it so we can catch up. Our goal is not to stop until we have digitized every scrap of Roosevelt's papers, broadly defined. And it's not just scanning them, it's then processing them and adding metadata and descriptors and making them searchable anywhere on Earth at any time of day or night, free. And we then publish them to the world. And if we can finish this in the next decade, and we think we can, or close, then we will be the first comprehensive presidential digital library in the world. How about that? Dickinson State University. You know? When a previous president and I went to Harvard to get them to agree to digitize their papers for us, we had a meeting with 5 or 6 of their most eminent deans of libraries, and all of them were in $1,000 suits and well-trimmed beards. And that president and I walked in and sat there nervously like 2 people in front of the Wizard of Oz. And they finally said, "What brings you here? Who are you?" And Dr. McCallum punched me in the ribs and said, "You talk." And so I said, "Well, we're from Dickinson State University." And they said, and I quote, "We haven't heard of that." I said, "Well, it's in North Dakota." They said, "Well, we have heard of that." And we made our pitch to them, and we went away in ignominy, thinking we had failed utterly and that this would, stall out the project. About 6 weeks later, they wrote us a letter saying, "We're going to do it. We're going to digitize all of our Harvard papers for you. We wanted to say no, but we couldn't think of a good enough reason." And so that's the kind of cooperation and success we've had, that everyone realizes how important this is. And if ever a president deserved a full-on digitization, it's Theodore Roosevelt, who read a book a day, wrote 40 himself, and wrote 155,000 letters that we know of. And the number of things that you can call Rooseveltian goes off in every direction. And at some point, you just have to say enough. We're immensely proud of what we're doing, and we're glad you're here, because your being here helps, because we want an outreach arm of all of this, and we've been able to bring the best scholars in the world here, including our keynote tonight, to talk about this extraordinary, problematic, gifted, boisterous, sometimes crazy fellow, Theodore Roosevelt. And by the way, to all the people who are picking us up on streaming around the country, including Tweed and students of Long Island University, welcome. We're glad you're here. We wish you were physically here, but we're glad to reach you through this great electronic outreach that we've developed. So, I want to welcome Chris O'Brien as our new director. Chris, just please stand up and take a bow. Just three quick other mentions. Amy McCann is here from the Presidential Library. Valerie Naylor is here, the former superintendent of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Claudia Berg is here from the State Historical Society of North Dakota. We're thrilled that you're here. And Joe Wiggin is here. The Roosevelt himself is in our midst tonight. So please stand up and say something squeaky.
Keep your eyes on the stars and your feet planted firmly on the ground.